Domain 4 is going to talk about the communication and network security. What are the things that we're going to cover in this domain? We are going to understand how does the secure network architecture works, and what are the various things that we need to do in order to secure our network components. So overall, we're just going to look at the OSI model. What exactly OSI model is, what are the various layers of it, and how does the different layers work. And in the module 2, we're going to talk about how do we ensure that communication that we initiate or manage to perform it is secure, and what are the various kind of network attacks. So a lot of things in this second module about the network attacks that we're going to cover. Few of them we have covered in the security engineering, the previous module, right? So it's going to be a good thing that we're going to have a quick revision as well. All right, let's start with module 1. So let's see what we have in module 1. This is OSI model. OSI stands for Open System Interconnection. So what exactly this model states that when we want to establish communication with any other system in the network, whenever we want to talk to any other system in the network, this model tells us what is the way to communicate it. It provides us a set of protocol. Okay, this model gives us the framework on how two systems should communicate with the protocols over the network. Now, as you can see, it has 7 different layers. Okay, it has 7 different layers. So you can take it from any sequence. But yeah, the numbering is not gonna change. But yes, you can take it any way in order to remember it. Remembering this 7 layers is very important. Okay, I'm quickly gonna run you through with the number of layers and what are they called, and then we're gonna talk about what exactly these layers are. So layer 1 is about physical layer. Layer 2 is your data link layer. Layer 3 is network. Layer 4 is transport. Layer 5 is session. Layer 6 is presentation, and layer 7 is your application layer. Okay, now before we get too deep into the detailings on each and everything, let's try and first understand how we can remember it. Okay, now one of the mnemonics that I used during my college days was, please do not touch Steve's pet alligator. And yes, we're not talking about Steve we have in this group, because I'm pretty sure Steve is not petting any alligator. Okay, so please do not touch Steve's pet alligator. Now there are various mnemonics that you can use in order to learn the sequence of OSI model. If you want to use this one, it has to be used from physical layer to the application layer. Okay, now there are various other, please do not throw sausage pizza away, something. I mean, just in case if you're fond of pizzas, if you want to read that, you might want to use that. Okay, so please do not throw sausage pizza away, and there would be a couple of more. So if this is something that you find it comfortable, you might want to use it. And this is, if you want something else to use it, then I'm totally fine with that. We just want you all to know the exact sequence of OSI model. Okay, now just to give you an overview, how does it work? So let's say this is an application, particular system, or this is another application which wants to talk to each other. Now let's say user sends something. Okay, user wants to communicate to this application by sending any data. Right, now data is being sent. Now you can see, as we are passing through from the layer 7 to layer 1, there are various things which are being added. Right, you could see various fragments and the bits and pieces are being added to the data. So this particular process of adding those bits and pieces, adding what are those bits and pieces, we are going to talk about it. The process of adding these bits and pieces as we traverse from application layer to physical layer is called as encapsulation. Okay, encapsulation. Now once the data reaches to the physical layer, it means physical layer of the first system which wants to send a data. It has several bits and pieces which is added to the data, right? And this is the exact way the data is sent to the physical layer of another system, system 2. Okay, now these bits and pieces of the data is stripped off. Okay, now you can see as we proceed from layer 1 to layer 7, these bits and pieces are removed. Removing of these information from the data is called as decapsulation. Okay, so when we add certain information, it means we are encapsulating the data. Encapsulation, yesterday we talked about encapsulation, where we are actually wrapping it up by some other information. So your exact message is residing inside it. And what you have done, you have added a layer or various layer of it on the top of it. So what we have done, we have encapsulated it. And when we remove these layers, when we remove these protective layers, we call it as it is being decapsulated. All right, so far we are good. Okay, now you do not have to spend time in remembering this. You don't want to spend time in remembering the ISO standard that was developed for OSI. You just have to remember the 7 layers of it in the right sequence. That is all. Now let's see what happens in these layers. Okay, now it is quite evident here that the so you can see here, as the data proceeds from the application layer to the further layers like presentation and session layer, it is being passed on from application to presentation, presentation to session, session to transport, right? Various things are being added, and we're going to see what exactly information is being added and how does it happen. So when the data is being sent to the physical layer, finally it is being transmitted over the internet, wireless, or cables, or whatever the physical medium that you want to do it, right? And as the data is received at the other end, the recipient end, right, they're going to receive the data same way as they have received from the system who's a sender, right? And they're just going to pass it on to the application layer so that it is going to be presented to the user the way it was supposed to be sent. All right, okay. Encapsulation and decapsulation, we discussed that encapsulation is called as packaging, when a payload or a message has the headers and footers added to the message as it goes down to the layers in OSI model from application to the physical. Okay, so we saw that there were various bits and pieces were being added, right? Decapsulation is the reverse of it. It is depackaging. It means we are unwinding the message as it goes up to the layers of OSI from physical to the application. All right, now data as it proceeds from application layer to the physical layer, data, you saw that it has various things which are being added along with it, right? Headers and footers, you can call various information which is being added. So the data is called differently in each and every layer. Okay, so we're going to see what the data which was being sent from by the system, okay, what do we call as it traversed from an application to the physical layer. Okay, so the data remains data from application to the session layer. Okay, data stays data as it proceeds from application to the session layer. A data is called as segment in transport layer. Now you can see here that I've mentioned as TCP and UDP. These are the protocols which works under the transport layer. Just don't get worried about understanding TCP and UDP. So I mean, we're going to discuss everything about TCP and UDP when we're going to talk about transport. So a data is called as segment as it reaches to transport layer if it is using transmission control protocol or TCP, and it is called datagram if it uses user datagram protocol or UDP. Okay, but let's stick with TCP or segment because most of the communication that we manage to do it uses TCP connection. Okay, what exactly is the TCP connection, how does it work, and how is it established, and why exactly what happens in the transport layer, everything is going to be discussed when we're going to pick up the transport layer, when we're going to pick up each layers individually, right? So data becomes segment in TCP. As it reaches to the network layer, we call it as a packet. Packet is the most common word that you all must have heard, that packet information, packet information. This is what happens when it reaches to the network layer. The moment it reaches to the data link layer, it is called as frames, and the moment it reaches to the physical layer, it is called as bits. Okay, when actually data is converted into the voltage and various bits. Okay, now although it is something that you might want to use it in your conversation that you make up, probably in case you get any scenario that a computer was sending any information to another computer and the packet was received, which layer we are talking about, something that sort of, then you should be knowing that what exactly data is called in which layer. So in order to understand that or probably remember it, you might want to use this mnemonic. Some people forget birthdays. Segment, packet, frames, bits. Okay, some people forget birthdays, which is quite obvious, right? I mean, including me, who doesn't have a good memory on these things. So some people forget birthdays. Okay, all right. Let's discuss about layer 1. What exactly happens? So we're going to talk from layer 1 to layer 7. Okay, so the things that happens in layer 1 and then things that happen in the layer 2 and everything. Okay, so the layer 1 is called your physical layer. Okay, the lowest layer that you saw in the diagram earlier. Okay, what it does, it accepts frames. Okay, so I'm going to quickly draw the physical and the other layers here. So this is your data link and this is your physical. So it accepts frame from data link, right? Data link used to send, the moment the data is reached at layer 2, it becomes frames. We just saw in the previous slide. So it accepts frames from the data link layer and converts them into bits. Converts them into bits means it is adding few more headers and footers information into the data. So what exactly we're doing? We are performing encapsulation. Okay, and it converts the physical bits to the frames at the receiving system. So receiving system would also have a similar kind of architecture. It would have physical, it would have data link. So the moment it is sent to the physical layer of other system, it is converted to frames by sending it to the data link layer. Now, what exactly happened whenever the data is received at the physical layer? It means now the transmission is going to happen. The data is going to be moved from one system to another through any medium. Okay, it could travel through network, wireless, or any or LAN, WAN, or anything. Right? What are the various components that work in the physical layer? So you would need cables through which you might want to transfer your data. The data which is transmitted in the cables, data which is transmitted in the cable, it is transmitted in the form of voltage, right? So that is why voltage is one of the essential components which is going to be a part of our physical layer. What exactly is a hub? So hub is a device which doesn't have any managing information or managing procedure in it. It just helps in transferring the data from one portion to another. So you must have seen hub is a collection of various it is a device which has various ports available where you want to plug into your wires or devices, right? So that is your hub. So hub is a device that works at layer 1 or a physical layer. Okay, so this is essentially we are talking about what are the various things that is a part of our physical layer. Okay, so even your amplifiers, repeaters, they all belong to layer 1. They all are the layer 1 devices. All right, now just a brief introduction about the cables, because we actually discussed cables in the layer 1. So cables are majorly on a high level categorized in a two types, which is twisted pair. Twisted pair, so were the cables which were actually these kind of cables were there where the data was being transmitted, right? It is least secure because tapping of this wire is quite easy. It is less expensive and very easy to work with. Okay, then we have fiber optics. Okay, fiber optics is something that is absolutely secure, but it is very expensive and a lot more expensive in compared to the twisted pair, and it is difficult. You actually need a specific skill set of people to work with the fiber optics. All right, although twisted pairs are not commonly used nowadays, most of the communication that link happens, it happens over the fiber optics. All right, okay, as we are discussing net physical layer, it would be good if we discuss about the network topology, the way actually we represent any kind of network. Okay, so what exactly network topology is? Network topology is the way we want to lay out our network, the way we want to ensure how does the various how does the systems are placed in the network and how they are going to communicate with each other. Okay, so it is a physical or a logical layout that we create so that we can determine how does the various systems which are going to be part of that network, they are going to communicate with each other. So on a high level, we're going to quickly discuss just these four topologies: bus, ring, star, and mesh. Okay, now what is a bus topology? Like the diagram is suggesting, it looks like a streamlined straightforward network where all the systems, so we call these systems as nodes. Okay, we refer these systems as nodes. So there's no central point of connection. So in a single network there are various systems being connected. So in case this system has to talk to this one, this particular system has to talk to this one, so the data is going to be travel like this. Okay, now just in case there is a particular faulty node or a faulty system, right? So it is going to be difficult to understand which particular node is faulty, and troubleshooting is a little challenging here in the bus topology. Okay, and just in case a cable breaks down from here or here, it is going to bring down the entire network, because it is not offering any kind of redundancy. There's no fault tolerance, there's no replication or duplication of the network. It is just a single plane network, right? So that's what happens in the bus topology. All right, then we have the ring topology. Ring topology looks like, because in the bus what you saw, the connection used to be start from here and used to terminate at this point. Okay, so in a ring topology, actually it is in the circular motion. Okay, again it doesn't have any central point of connection, they all are just connected to each other. Ring topology on its own doesn't offer any kind of fault tolerance. We can implement media access unit or a MAU for a fault tolerance. What exactly it does? It is going to listen for any faulty node. Okay, it is going to just reach out to every node to see in case every node is up and running. The moment it finds any kind of node which is not responding or not working, it is going to ensure this particular node, till the time it is brought up and running, is not a part of the network. Okay, and then the communication link established between the rest of the nodes. All right, similarly we have another topology which is called as star topology. Now in the star topology, we do have a central point of connection, which could be done with the help of switch or any hub. So various nodes are connected to a centralized point, right? So just in case a particular node is not working, the rest of the nodes can still work on. Why? Because the communication is happening through the with the help of a centralized point, right? Which is managing. However, just in case if this fails, then they won't be able to communicate. So your switch or hub or whatever the centralized point of connection we have used here is, it acts as a single point of failure. All right, it acts as a single point of failure. The next topology we have is the mesh topology, which is the most fault tolerant. Now you can see the reason it is called as mesh. Mesh is an architecture which is said like a net. Okay, so that is what it looks like. It is most fault tolerant. Now you can see here each and every node. So if you can just pick up this node, it is talking to this node as well. This link is taking to this node, this link is talking to this node, and this link is talking to this node. So each and every node is talking to each other. So it is completely fault tolerant, and redundancy is absolutely maintained. Okay, so even let's say this communication links break, right? So this particular node can still send the data with the help of this node. I mean, it's going to send this node to here and then going to send data to this node. Okay, well, this full mesh or the entire mesh is very costly implemented. I mean, it is quite evident why, because you need several set of wires to be implemented, and then you need people to maintain it, right? That is why it is costly. So just to make sure that it doesn't overweighs the cost, sometimes people use partial mesh. Partial mesh is when you do not want to interlink every system with everyone. You only interlink with the system that you actually want to ensure that they should be up and running, or which are the critical for your as per the requirement or as per the business. Okay, so this is your mesh topology. All right, okay, let's quickly talk about various form of network stacks. Now network stacks, these are the devices which are available on the network, right, that we leverage in order to communicate or send data from one place to another. All right, we're going to quickly gonna talk about each and every one to understand which device works how. The first one is hub. Now hub we discussed while we were talking about the previous layer, the physical layer, right? And it is a layer 1 device, right? It is a layer 1 device, so it sends data to all the ports. Now let's say it has a this is a hub, and we have 4 systems or nodes being connected to it. Okay, the moment it is going to send the data, it is going to be transmitted to everyone. It doesn't have any kind of addressing schemes or any management is done here. Okay, it is not going to decide that okay, this was something was supposed to be sent on only onto this system and not to these systems. It doesn't have any kind of addressing scheme, and it is less expensive, right? Less number of features, that is why less cost. Okay, then we have modem. Modem stands for your modulator and demodulator, and we used to use, I mean, if you take yourself almost 15 years back or even before that, more, I mean, all the internet connection used to happen with the help of modems, right? So it, what exactly it does, it converts the digital signal to the analog signals. Okay, all right. Then we have routers, whatever you want to call it, right? It actually connects two similar networks. Okay, whenever you have two similar networks that they are meant to communicate with each other, they use routers to talk to each other. Now it is a layer 3 device, which means it works on network layer. Okay, so let's say your organization has a presence in India and in US. Okay, so it is going to talk through each other whenever we want to talk to each other. So these networks will have set of edge routers, right? The moment we're gonna initiate the connection, it is going to land on their edge routers, and then that's how they're gonna talk to each other, and similarly vice versa. Then we have bridge. Bridges are used to connect two different networks within LAN. So let's say inside your organization you have HR department and your payroll department, because these two would possibly work with each other. Now these two are placed into separate LAN areas. Okay, these two have on separate LAN areas. Now if you want to connect these two communication, we might want to use the bridge. Now bridges are the layer 2 devices. All right. Okay, then we have a device called as routers, which is a combination of your bridge and your routers. So first it is going to route your packet information. So when we say routing, what exactly does it mean? More clarity you would have when we are going to talk about layer 3 or the network, in a network layer. So every message, how does it know that where it is supposed to be reached? There are various information, those encapsulated information that we were talking about, headers and footers. It includes the source address and the destination address, that from where it is being sent and where it is supposed to go, right? So these details are used by devices like routers and switches to understand where exactly they want to take the packet. Okay, so routers were the combination of the bridge and the routers, so it is going to try to route first, just in case if it fails, then it bridges the communication. Okay, then we have gateways connect two networks using different protocols. So gateway is the most outer entry or exit point of any packet. Okay, so there are two networks, let's say network 1 and network 2. This needs to be connected, right? So the gateway would use various set of protocols in order to connect these two networks. All right, then we have switch. So interesting thing about the switches here are, let's say this is a sender and this is a receiver, right? So we normally try to draw a very simple diagram that a sender is going to send a packet and it is going to simply receive to the receiver. Well, in real practice, it doesn't happen like that. A packet simply doesn't leave the sender and ends up landing to the receiver. There are various intermediary channel or points that a packet has to travel. Okay, these intermediary devices are your switches. Okay, so what exactly switch does? It uses MAC address to direct the traffic. Now, do you remember we talked about MAC address and IP address when we were talking about address resolution protocol, when we were actually discussing about the threats of the caches? Do we remember this in the previous domain, when we talked about the attacks which are caused by caches? So we talked about various caches like your ARP cache or ARP poisoning and DNS poisoning and local caches. So while we were discussing about ARP, we talked about IP addresses and MAC address. Okay, MAC address is your physical address, which we're going to talk about when we're going to talk about data link layer there. It is your physical address. So it uses MAC address to direct the traffic. Okay, now it reduces collision. Collision, what happens? whenever a packet or a two packet collides with each other, or they use the same channel in the same time, they collide with each other, and then it needs to be retransmitted. Okay, now let's say you sent a message from one place to another, and it is like, hello, how are you? Now that hello, how are you is a data, which is a message, but on the network it is going to be splitted into various small forms. Okay, and then each form would be taken a particular route to travel to the recipient end. Realistically, that's how it happens. And at the recipient end, these packets are going to be assembled and give you the exact message, hello, how are you? Okay, that's how it happens in the realistic way. All right, then we have wireless access points. Now wireless access points, these are the devices which we use to connect our personal devices to connect to the internet or any network. So provides wireless devices a point of connection to the wired network. So you all just might want to look at your home Wi-Fi router that or that you have placed. It is connected to a LAN, and that particular device is enabling the wireless connection at your homes. So that particular device is your wireless access point. Okay, then we have proxy. Proxy is nothing which sits in between of two parties who wants to communicate. It mediates the communication between two networks. So let's say, and it is very common, I mean, you all must have heard about the proxies at your organizations that is placed, which protects you from accessing any website which might cause harm to your system or to you or to your organization. Okay, so let's say this is what you want to talk to someone, or you want to access any URL. Okay, you want to access any URL. Now before it reaches directly to the DNS server and you are able to access that, it is going to, your connection is going to hit to this device. This device is going to ensure whether you are supposed to access or not. So remember the transitive trust that we talked about. A trust B, B trust C, then only A can trust C. Okay, so the proxy was one of the examples there. So a proxy is going to sit in between and mediates the connection or communication between two parties or two networks. Okay, the common examples are the proxy servers that we use, or even things like NAT or PAT. NAT is your network address translation, PAT is your port address translation. We're going to talk about these things in the next module. Okay, what exactly NAT and PAT is. All right, so this was all about the network stack. All right, so with this we complete domain 4, that is networking communication security.